Railroading is filled with stories of haunted trains and ghostly engineers who haunt the tracks where they died. But there are darker stories of hoodoo trains and cursed trains that carry a stigma with them. The little rusted, narrow-gauge train that sat in a field between the towns of Bedford and Schellsburg seemed to be just a lost piece of history, until someone took the time to learn that it was a cursed train that took lives. Now, most people are familiar with standard gauge track and standard gauge railroads, but there are narrow gauge tracks, too. They are often used by smaller railroads and businesses that use smaller trains. Nevertheless, these tracks were workhorses that bore wood, lumber, coal, and were vital to a growing nation. Engine 49 was a narrow gauge engine put on the line sometime in the 1940s. The exact date it began service is not known, but the date began evidencing its curse is well known. In 1947, the engine was working at the Jamestown Quarry in New York with side dump cars that could tip sideways to offload what they held. The engine was dumping quarry rock into a crusher. The engineer would have to back the train up car by car as each load was dumped into the crusher. The track was built beside the crusher and went back far enough for the engineer to empty a specific number of cars by slowly reversing and backing up each car. The track just dropped off at a far end, and so it was vital that the engineer pay attention to what he was doing. Suddenly, the engineer startled awake as the train seemed to be pulled backward off the track. He reacted instinctively and jumped from the side of the hill the trestle ran beside. He landed with a jolt as the train fell off the end of the track and right into the crusher building. There was screaming, a terrible crash that echoed through the small valley. There was a wall of steam coming up, and then flames escaped. 2 men were killed, and others injured when the train crashed into the 5th floor of the crusher building. Fortunately, the death toll was slim because the framing held, and the train did not go into the floors below. Engine 49 was removed in pieces and sent to a company called Alco to be repaired. The train accident had cost over $100,000. Alco completely reconstructed the train because the boiler and water tank were compromised by the crash. They were removed and new ones were installed. Everyone working on the rails knew that the most important things in an engine were the water tank and the boiler. They were vital to move the train, and they were deadly if not properly maintained. In 1950, Engine 49 was put back to work in the quarry. It did not take long for the train to find trouble. It had been working only a few weeks when one night around 8 o'clock, the train was sitting on the track, waiting its turn to dump. The engineer had to steam up so that the train was ready to move when it got its turn. Suddenly, the new steam line broke loose, hitting the engineer and killing him instantly. The train was quickly removed from service. The train crews and the quarrymen alike did not want to work around Engine 49. People had been calling it the Ghost. It had claimed 3 men's lives in as many years. However, businesses are not sentimental about their equipment, and Engine 49 was valuable, and a great deal of money that had been spent on repairing it. The train was gone over once more and then put back into service. The word spread quickly among the engineers that Engine 49 was cursed. Those brave enough to work the engine reported that at 8 o'clock, the smell of burning flesh filled the little engine and forced them out. No one wanted to be aboard the train, particularly at that time of night. The quarrymen also feared the engine. Had not the first 2 victims been workers at the quarry? They talked about how the train's bell would ring when no one was in the train, and how the whistle would blow despite the fact that no one was physically in the engine to pull the whistle chain. Most of what happened occurred in the evening to the evening crew, and it usually happened around 8 o'clock. Finally, things reached a point where the engineers refused to work on Engine 49. The Jamesville quarry might have put money into the train, but the